Happening now on Grid Tonight. It's our last show of 2025, and we begin with major news from NASCAR, followed by a young NASCAR star making his GTP debut next month in the Rolex 24 at Daytona, and IndyCar establishing an independent officiating system, plus the results of the 2025 FIA presidential election. Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lameth. With me are Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports, Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index, and Tanner Smith from Pit Box Press. We encourage everyone to interact with us in the chat, support us through Super Chat, and visit gridnetworktv.com for our latest content. We have a lot to talk about tonight, so Josh, take it away with our top story this evening.
Thank you, Kobe. Good evening to you. Good evening, Matt. Good evening, Tanner. And hello, everybody. Nice to be back. I'm desperately missing my hot tub I was in last week, sitting here in the freezing cold in the week before Christmas, but it's our last show of the year. Let's get on with it. So, on day 9 of the NASCAR versus 2311 racing and Front Row Motorsports antitrust trial, both sides have reached a settlement last Thursday morning. Now, this all began 14 months ago when those two teams filed this lawsuit against NASCAR after believing that the teams were getting screwed in the new charter agreement. Now, instead of signing the charter agreement reluctantly like other chartered Cup Series teams did, 2311 and Front Row decided to fight back by launching this antitrust trial case. Now, throughout the year, we've seen courts filing after court filing, ruling after ruling, and one notable ruling was allowing NASCAR to take away 2311 and Front Row's charters before the race weekend at Dover Motor Speedway back in July. That meant that Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, Riley Herbst, Zane Smith, and Todd Gilliland, and Noah Gragson had to race the rest of the 2025 season in open cars, which cost both organizations a significant amount of money. Now, according to Jordan Bianchi from The Atlantic, his sources told him that as part of the settlement, NASCAR agreed to pay monetary damages to both teams. They will also receive their 6 charters back. Now, Bianchi added that the teams will receive an unknown percentage of NASCAR's international media rights deals and the charters will become permanent. NASCAR CEO Jim France has previously said that he was against permanent charters on numerous occasions, including in his testimony on the stand. The link to this article is in the video description below. The joint statement reads that NASCAR, 2311 Racing, and Front Row Motorsports are pleased to announce a mutually agreed upon resolution that delivers long-term stability and creates the conditions for meaningful growth for all teams in a more competitive environment. This resolution reflects our shared commitment to maintaining a fair and equitable framework, that was a bit hard for me to read there, sorry, for long-term participation in America's premier motorsport, one that supports teams, partners, and stakeholders while ensuring fans enjoy uninterrupted access to the best racing in the world. Now, this agreement allows all parties to move forward with a unified focus on advancing stock car racing and delivering exceptional competition for our fans. With this matter now resolved, all parties look forward to working together alongside all chartered race teams to deliver world-class events, dynamic sponsorship, and partner activity opportunities, and continued growth for generations to come. As a condition of the settlement agreement, NASCAR will issue an amendment to existing charter holders detailing the updated terms for signature, which will include a form of evergreen charters subject to mutual agreement. The financial terms of the settlements are confidential and will not be released. What all parties have always agreed on is a deep love for the sport and a desire to see it fulfill its full potential. This is a landmark moment, one that ensures NASCAR's foundation is stronger, its future is brighter, and its possibilities are greater. We extend our sincere thanks to Judge Kenneth Bell and mediator Jeffrey Mishkin for their professionalism and guidance throughout this process, and to the jury for their time. Now, Michael Jordan and Curtis Pollock also released a statement. Michael Jordan saying, from the beginning, this lawsuit was about progress. It was about making sure our sport evolves in a way that supports everyone, teams, drivers, partners, employees, and fans, with a foundation to build equality and equity, I should say. Blimey, who put white text on a black background? To build equity and invest in the future and a stronger voice in the decisions ahead. We now have the chance to grow together and make the sport even better for generations to come. I'm excited to watch our teams get back on the track and compete hard in 2026. Curtis points out, saying, my goal as a member of the team negotiating committee was to help create an economic model that would create a more sustainable model for teams and create a more equitable and transparent system within NASCAR. This settlement achieves significant progress towards the 4 pillars, and the result brings NASCAR and the chartered teams into better alignment and supports future growth and sustainability for all stakeholders and a better sport for the fans. Bob Jenkins says first as well, but Denny Hamlin said, I've cared deeply about the sport of NASCAR my entire life. Racing is all I've ever known, and this sport shaped who I am. That's why we were willing to shoulder the challenges that came with taking this stand. We believed it was worth fighting for a stronger, more sustainable future for everyone in the industry. Teams, drivers, and partners will now have the stability and opportunity they deserve. Our commitment to the fans and to the entire NASCAR community has never been stronger. I'm proud of what we've accomplished, and now it's time to move forward together and build the strongest future for this sport that it deserves. Bob Jenkins pointed out, saying as well, after more than 20 years in this sport, today gives me real confidence in where we're heading. I love this sport, and it was clear we needed a system that treated our teams, drivers, and sponsors fairly and kept the competition strong. With this change, we can finally build long-term value and have a real voice in NASCAR's future. I'm excited for the road ahead, for the people in the garage, the folks in the stands, and everyone who loves the sport. Jim France put out this statement saying, this outcome gives all parties the flexibility and confidence to continue delivering unforgettable racing moments for our fans, which has always been our highest priority since the sport was founded in 1948. We worked closely with race teams and tracks to create the NASCAR charter system in 2016, and it's proven invaluable to the operations and to the quality of racing across the Cup Series. Today's agreement reaffirms our commitment to preserving and enhancing that value, ensuring that our fans continue to enjoy the very best of stock car racing for generations to come. We are excited to return to the collective focus of our sport, teams, and racetracks towards an incredible 78th season that begins with the Daytona 500 on Sunday, Feb 15th, 2026. First of all, they really need to change white text, black background. Not many people can read that. I really struggle with that. Tanner's back with us this evening. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Tanner. How did both sides reach a settlement, and what key elements during the trial played a factor in this outcome?
Well, Josh, I'm glad you asked. I obviously kept tabs of everything that happened during the case throughout it. So I guess I'll just pick up where we left off from the previous meeting that I attended. So obviously we had Steve O'Donnell take the stand on Thursday, December 4th, where defense attorney Jeffrey Kessler pressed the president of NASCAR on SRX and why he viewed it as a competitor to NASCAR in text messages to other members of the sport's leadership. O'Donnell revealed he felt threatened by SRX when he saw Chase Elliott driving a Napa car with a, quote, stylized number 9 in the series, even though a fact check from a number of observers on social media pointed out that Elliott actually drove a car with the number 94 on it in SRX, another homage to his father Bill, who drove that number in the Cup Series. Kessler later leaned more into a later text exchange where O'Donnell appears to allude to a poor charter agreement for the teams and ask if the dictator in question in that text is implied to be Jim France, giving O'Donnell cause to pause before repeating the same phrase from the previous question, it could be anyone. Once that concluded, they moved on to front row Motorsports owner Bob Jenkins, where he suffered cross-examination from NASCAR's attorney Larry Buterman. Essentially, he tried to paint a picture that Jenkins, like Hamlin in the previous cross-examination, is dishonest about his finances, but nothing really seemed to land on that. He tried playing a game of gotcha with Bob by bringing up the fact that the restaurant magnate gave Denny Hamlin a short deadline himself to complete a potential merger earlier in the decade with 2311, but Jenkins very clearly brushed this off, noting rightly that 2311 could go to another team to acquire a charter, which they ultimately did in 2021 when they purchased their second charter from Starcom to give a seat to Kurt Busch. More on that name momentarily. Friday morning kicked off with testimony from the inimitable Michael Jordan, where he laid out his impressive credentials as well as how he got into auto racing himself, telling stories about how his family packed into their car to go from North Carolina all the way down to Talladega when he was young. He ended up detailing his entire lineage as a race fan, acknowledging his father was a big Richard Petty guy, while he ended up becoming a Cale Yarborough fan himself, the original 11, as he determined it in the courtroom. Jordan ended up covering a whole lot of ground in his testimony, mentioning that he goes to about a third of the races every year, but watches all of them on TV. He does mention that he's, as he said, about 100 feet up from the company and its day-to-day workings, but he is very, very passionate about the sport and how it operates. The conversation even dipped into, a potential drivers union, among other things. He wants to see a bit more of a partnership between the teams and NASCAR. And, one thing he did mention is that the sport now lacked the infrastructure. And I found that to be a pretty illuminating point, especially in the wake of, the sport's bigger infrastructure in place to help compensate Dale Earnhardt's family at the time. Anyhow, it was acknowledged in Jordan's testimony that he has acknowledged that the France family has built an incredible sport worthy of competition, but once credit and prepared the race cars and actually went out and drove them, which Jim France very critically has not. After that, obviously the Race Team Alliance leader, John Marshall, took the stand, but his testimony didn't really provide a whole lot of sizzle really for either side. Joe Gibbs Racing's co-owner, Heather Gibbs, who is the wife to the late Coy Gibbs, who passed away in 2022 after the Xfinity Series title race. She went into detail about the September 6th phone call that Joe Gibbs allegedly made to Jim France in the wake of the charter agreement being sent out to sign at 6 p.m. local time that needed to be signed by midnight. Joe Gibbs allegedly gave a call to Jim and told him that, please don't do this to us. And Jim kind of brushed it off like, if I wake up in the morning with 30 charters, I wake up with 30. If I wake up in the morning with 20, I have 20. And let me just tell you, I don't think that tended to go over well with either the fan base or the folks in court. Most of Monday the following week was spent, kind of going over financial experts' opinions on what the damages are. And I'm just going to go ahead and move past that because I feel like at this point it's a bit extraneous. Moving on to Tuesday, though, a lot of heavy hitters hit the stand. Obviously, you had Jim France give his testimony, kind of. Much of the team's attorneys' questions, Jim France and later Commissioner Steve Phelps as well, they kept relatively mum, answering many of them with, "I don't remember, I'm sorry," or "I don't recall," which is just so interesting. France's answer to practically every question lobbed to him was rebuffed due to a lack of recollection, which legal analysts noted would be hard for NASCAR's attorneys to recover from. Obviously, as previously mentioned, Steve Phelps' silence filled the air for much of his examination as well. He attempted to use hearsay a lot, which ultimately got thrown out. And frankly, I don't know if he was trained to do this, how to be a witness in this trial, or if he was deliberately trained to use the hearsay. But you're not supposed to do that in court. They don't tend to like it. Phelps did try to prove that the 5-year sanctioning agreements that they have with tracks were fair and reasonable, but Kessler pushed back with evidence that they were mostly used as a way for NASCAR to prevent any sort of a competitor developing and ultimately rising to prominence to compete with them. including emails in that line of questioning between Phelps and Marcus Smith, who own Speedway Motorsports, that explained that the agreements were presented to SMI as a way to limit competitors and bolster the charter agreement. So, yeah, he kind of stepped on a rake there. Upon cross-examination, Phelps made note of Furniture Row Racing's closure after the 2018 season, displaying that teams will literally go broke to get to the top of the sport, no matter how much money they get. This completely misses the fact, in my opinion, though, that FRR lost a major sponsor in 5 Hour Energy, and their technical alliance with JGR was increased for 2018 because, for one thing, one of the drivers that they had on staff in 2017 moved to JGR and Eric Jones. And in addition to that, the most important part of all this is obviously Cole Pern, who as part of this technical alliance was supposed to be sharing data with JGR back to them, apparently made it more of a one-way street where he would just take JGR's data and not share any of it back. So that would be the reason for the price increase. Not only that, Phelps thought this was a great opportunity to call the next-gen car the safest race car on Earth, which Kessler quickly shot down by saying, "Do you know who Kurt Busch is?" This is obviously in reference to the Cup champion that raced for 23XI in 2022, when his career was ended by a series of hard hits that season, ending at Pocono that year, where he sustained a concussion from which he still suffers complications. Also on Tuesday, RCR owner Richard Childress made his much-anticipated arrival to the stand, where the cross-examination by NASCAR's attorneys crossed the line again, this time by talking about negotiations between Childress and former Cup driver Bobby Hillin Jr. to sell part of RCR, as Childress's other investor, Chartwell Investments, was looking for a way out of the sport. Unfortunately for NASCAR, those negotiations between Hillin and Childress were protected by an NDA that they both signed, so it's pretty much undetermined at this time how they came to acquire that document of these negotiations, but yeah, that was a very illuminating moment for pretty much everybody involved. After that, Wednesday arrived. Jim France and Steve Phelps continued to mostly fill the air with their amnesia on pretty much anything that ever happened during redirect. So the plaintiffs ended up resting their case. After that, John Probst, the executive vice president and chief racing development officer, John Probst, took the stand. And while he was the first NASCAR-linked witness to push back at the team's attorneys, Probst talked more about the next-gen car rather than answering questions that would enhance his side's case, outside of saying that, quote, he felt the team's cost of $20 million per car was a bit high. However, it was Wednesday night when the dam burst open for NASCAR, as Johnny Morris, the owner of Bass Pro Shops and its subsidiaries, released a letter to the public where he lashed out at NASCAR for their treatment of his close friend Richard Childress, leading him to believe that it's impossible for the sport to be administered and officiated fairly as long as the sport has leadership that talks about team owners the way Phelps and his ilk did in the text messages revealed prior to trial. Thursday morning got off to a bit of an odd start as the counsel for both sides weren't present, but that was due to them working out a settlement, which was ultimately announced in the courtroom around 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time on December 9th, or that wouldn't have been the 9th, would have been the 11th. The court ended up being adjourned. Settlement. Everything's over. The news elicited big reactions from the jury and members of both sides, with jurors doing dances and Hamlin and Jim France sharing a hug. I wish someone had gotten a photo of this, but unfortunately can't have phone in a courtroom. Though the exact terms of the updated agreement have not been announced, what is alleged to be part of the agreement has already been gone over. So I guess to kind of circle back to what all the big points are that kind of led us to where we are today, with a court case being settled and everybody seeming to be hunky-dory yet again, I would say both Jim France's and Steve Phelps' testimonies were less than ideal for NASCAR's side on this. I don't think it lends confidence to your case when nobody, regardless of age, seems to be able to remember what they said or what they did, especially when these folks are being presented with the obvious evidence in their hands in the court of law that would show them that they said what they said, and they still can't just take any sort of accountability for it. Like I mentioned in the Phelps section, I don't know if they were trained at all. I know that some witnesses, like some legal teams, will train their witnesses, kind of give them a list of questions that they can go over to essentially enhance their case and make sure that they are answering in a way that doesn't kind of contradict it. Obviously, I think in some cases, some folks are genuinely not able to, one way or the other, recall something. But at the end of the day, I think that for them to essentially use that as their entire strategy was a complete own goal. With all that said, I'd say, Bob Jenkins' testimony, it seemed like they tried to catch him out pretty often, but unfortunately for them, that didn't quite work out in the way they'd hoped. And at the end of the day, it just seemed like a big waste of time. I think that the biggest thing that made anything happen here happened outside of the courtroom, had nothing to do with the courtroom, really. I think the Johnny Morris thing is what got this to the finish line. Now, granted, I do think that is partially related to Richard Childress's testimony and the fact that the defense presented evidence that was not permissible in the court of law. And like I said, we're still waiting to hear what we're trying to see essentially what the fallout of that's going to be. But at the same time, I just feel like Johnny Morris, a very significant sponsor in the sport at two different levels, both the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series with Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s race team, JR Motorsports, as well as several cars in the Cup Series, including Richard Childress's grandson, Austin Dillon. He runs a Bass Pro Shops car most of the year. Chase Briscoe is sponsored by Bass Pro Shops every race of the season. And I believe Noah Gragson has picked up some sponsorship from that team as well. I mean, for someone of that caliber and who has such a long history in the sport dating back to 1996, I believe, it really says something that they just don't have any faith in the officiating body anymore, that they would go so far as to write what has been termed a handwritten letter. Obviously got typed out, but still, I think that in itself, a sponsor coming out and saying something so incendiary definitely spurred both sides into action on Wednesday night, and ultimately we got a settlement on Thursday morning. So, yeah, I would say the Johnny Morris thing is probably the biggest part of all this, but it was linked to NASCAR's defense completely botching evidence, and yeah, that's kind of how we got where we got.
Thank you, Tanner. Just get some comments quickly up from the chat room that's come in as well whilst we've been on air. Adam says, very happy to see the trial done. Now to focus on 2026, starting with the clash at Bowman Gray Stadium. That's true. That comes first. Omi's watching. Hello, guys. Hello, Omi. Nice lit mic. I too have one of those coming through. Ben's here as well saying, oh, I don't know, Jim. I think it's about to go down. It's not going to. Yeah, I think it could. It could be worse, Matt. I think we were thinking something else. Think about it. Trying to fix something up and the name is Jim. Shall I just leave it there and go straight to you with a question? Do you believe that there's a path forward to get... I can see you looking at me on the monitor. Do you think there's a path forward to get NASCAR and the teams working together for the good of the support? And can the regulations between NASCAR 2311 and Front Row excuse me, can they heal over time?
Well, first of all, good evening, Josh. Hello, Tanner. Hello, Kobe behind the scenes. Jangle, jangle, jewelry, jewelry. Let's leave that there. First of all, thank goodness that this is all over and done with, and we can get on with our lives away from looking at Twitter every 5 minutes to find out what's happened now. Roll on, as Adam said, roll on next season, which will happen. The season will start. Cars will be on the grid. Racing will happen. They'll still be on Goodyear tyres they'll still be running Sunoco fuel. It'll still be Chevrolet, Ford, and Toyota, all of the teams that were omnipresent already. And it will still be on Fox, and then it'll also be on Amazon, on TNT, and on NBC. Nothing you see coming through your television screen next year will be any different to what you've seen this year. And of course, there will be a playoff. More of that to come, I'm sure, later. But glad this is all done and dusted, and we can, move on with our lives. What happens now, of course, once we get through this holiday break and into the new year is the question. I don't think we'll hear and see much. I don't feel like until the spring, and then pieces of puzzles will move around, perhaps in the NASCAR higher-ups, and some other bits and pieces will go on behind the scenes. But yeah, this is it's hopefully gonna bring the sport back together, which apparently was extremely broken. Just ask NASCAR Twitter about how broken it is. And we can, move on and have racing back on our televisions every week and be excited about, well, I feel like it's going to be a really good season next year. And I'm going to say it now, as we like to do on the show, a time check, 8 minutes past 11 on the 17th of December. Your Daytona 500 pole winner is Denny Hamlin.
That's a great clip. I think that obviously there's definitely some sort of path forward. The only way to go forward from here is together. I do think Richard Childress might have a little bit of a qualm with that. You might see some litigation coming from him as well. We'll see. But at the same time, I think something that's been very odd to me since 2311 joined the grid 5 years ago is the fact that I feel like the sport hasn't done enough of a job of embracing Michael Jordan. I know that sounds odd, but hear me out. I feel like someone of his stature, and there are very few human beings on the planet who have the cachet that Michael Jordan has. I just feel like if you have someone of that caliber involved in your sport, and as heavily as Michael is involved in the sport, you should be advertising the hell out of him. Like, he needs to be like at the forefront, and his team need to be at the forefront here as far as everything is concerned. So I feel that with all of that said, I think that the best way forward here is to try to bridge the gap there, at least in the public eye. I don't know if privately everything's going to be completely hashed out and everybody's hurt feelings are going to subside before Daytona in February. I'm not naive to think that. With all that said, I do think that if you can, at minimum, try to bridge the gap publicly with Michael, I think most of folks that were ardently on the side of 2311 and front row throughout the trial should be feeling, pretty good if publicly everybody seems to be all, hunky-dory. It seems that the team's got everything that they asked for, or at least most of what they got, or most of what they asked for they got. So at the end of the day, I don't think from the 2311 and front row side they're going to be too miffed, by January 1st, 2026. So I think as far as, keeping everything tight, keeping everything moving forward together, I think the teams are already there. Is Jim France there? Frankly, I don't care. Like, my God, man, you drug this out for 16 more months than it ever needed to be, all to just make one stroke of your pen that you ended up making anyway. You wasted hundreds of millions of dollars in your money to fight this, and you really shouldn't have. But we got here. It's over with. So how about we drop it and move on? I think that would probably be best for them. I think that I didn't notice anything completely out of left field as far as officiating is concerned last year with either 2311 and FRM. So I don't think that there is any sort of like funny business going on that will extend into next season, but it's impossible to tell. That said, I'd like to think that there is still a whole lot of goodwill left in the sport from the team side, mainly because they have to. But yeah, from NASCAR's end, I really don't care what their feelings are. They need to get over them and move on to Daytona, like they've been saying in the media and in court.
Oh. There we go. That's better. White flag, everybody. Just give it over with. It's good to be on the end of it. Ben says, it's kind of crazy that it took a lawsuit like this to get Michael Jordan's NASCAR business venture mentioned on national news programs for the first time since the team launched. That's an excellent point. Or maybe Bubba's Talladega win in 21, but aside from that, it feels like there hasn't been much coverage of him being an active part of the sport. Didn't see much of him either, did we, Matt, around the Indy victory as well at the Brickyard 400?
He wasn't there.
I don't think he was on site for that one. I agree with what you're saying, and I know we're already running long on this, and we've not quite got to the end of the first point of the show tonight. If you roll out everything for Michael Jordan, are we then going to have the reverse effect of the one we've just had? It's the same what's happening with the leader of the free world, where everyone just goes, yes, no problem, we'll do that for you. Like his ridiculous Peace Prize that he got a couple of weeks ago. You can't just keep saying yes to people. Sometimes no is the credible answer. Next.
I agree. I don't know if any more comments are coming through. No, they're not. So I'll throw it back then. You were both mentioning about the possibility of new people coming into NASCAR. So given what we've learned about NASCAR's executives during this trial, are you agreeing with Jeff Gluck from The Athletic that we need to see changes in the leadership here? You've both said it already, because he's called for Jim France to step down as CEO. And others also want to potentially see NASCAR's Commissioner Steve Phelps resign as well. Now, Tanner, can you give more enlightenment on what you were saying a moment ago? Yeah,
so as far as changes potentially going forward, I am very much in lockstep with Jeff Gluck. He and I actually spoke a little bit about this going back to the Kansas fall race where we all met up at the Tweet Up. But I feel that Jim France absolutely 100% needs to resign for this sport to move forward. Clearly, under his leadership, we just kind of stagnated and not really elevated. And I feel like it's really time for the old regime to step down and move over for a younger set of folks. In addition to that, I also think that both Steve Phelps and Steve O'Donnell also need to be either resigning or moving to a different part of the business, because I think the trust between sponsors and the fan base with NASCAR's leadership is fractured beyond repair at this point. When you have the president of at the time of the sport calling one of the most long tenured, respected team owners, one of the most decorated team owners in the sport, in Richard Childress, calling him, quote, an ass clown and a redneck who owes his entire fortune to NASCAR, and you say that he deserves to be taken out back and flogged, you're not coming back from that. I'm sorry. You're just not. And I think if anybody in NASCAR seems to think that Steve Phelps is going to be able to recover from that, he's not going to be able to. I do think Steve O'Donnell, though, I think that he has a less incendiary reason for being fired or resigning. I do think that he definitely tried to play the court of public opinion right before the season ended by doing his little appearance on Dale Jr.'s show, where he tried to, put out some of the fires that some of his text messages started. But at the same time, I mean, this is the same guy that was, threatened by SRX over something that didn't actually exist. And frankly, I think we need more intelligent people at NASCAR that know exactly what they're mad about and know exactly how they're going to topple it, rather than whatever the hell this was. Like, they took SRX to NASCAR's legal team and they told them there was nothing actionable they could do. So I just feel like at the end of the day, NASCAR's leadership needs a complete revamp, and personally, a youthful revamp. If you really want to attach yourselves to the next generation of race fan, you probably need to put more publicly younger looking faces out there to push the sport forward. Having 80-year-old Jim France be the head of your sport, not going to cut it at this point. That said, I don't know if Ben Kennedy is really ready for a chairman role, but I do think that at this rate, moving Jim France and the Steves out of the public light would probably be the best way forward. That said, outside of Ben Kennedy, I don't have people right off the top of my head that should be filling in the other slots, but I think that he needs to be the guy kind of playing front man going forward, whether that be in public or in private or both. I do think that having Ben Kennedy kind of be the face of the officiating and the sanctioning of NASCAR would be an absolute, A+ move for them going forward. That said, if I had to say how likely that is, I would say the likelihood of Jim France stepping down probably more likely than anything. I did find it interesting that Steve Phelps was not present on Thursday when the trial was settled. So I wonder if that's almost like a bit of an Easter egg. But at the end of the day, I just feel that if the sport really intends to dig its heels in and move forward, you've got to move the old generation out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Tanner, on kind of what you said there. Thus, both the Steves and France really do have to scuttle off their ways, because they really have come out of this one with much egg on faces. Two comparisons to make, though, coming out of this, I feel like. One is a motorsport related one and one is not. We'll go with the motorsport one first. Remember, we were all the Formula One fans amongst us were kind of worried and skeptical once the Liberty stuff started, but goodness me, what have they done with it and turned it into the even more of a behemoth that it already was. And when they took it over from Bernie Ecclestone, of course, back in, when was that, 2017, whenever it was now, top of my head, we're all a bit skeptical, but my goodness me, well, look what the job they've done. Non-motorsport related, is Ben Kennedy the Paul Levesque of NASCAR? He marries into the family and then he gets the big job, and everyone goes, oh my goodness, look at this, he's going to take it, it's going to be amazing. And now everyone's calling for Vince McMahon to come back. The grass is not always greener. This is a big moment in the history of the sport, no doubt about that. Just plead the caution. Perhaps you will get someone come in, or a group or whatever, that promises the world and delivers terribly. Let's just wait and see on that.
It's going to be an interesting start, as France has to go for sure. I don't know how Phelps can show his face in the garage area after what he said. Reed Childress and Elliott in SRX. OD can stay, I guess. So that is not a complete change. One thing I want to be interested about is, as Matthew Owens here saying, don't get too excited there, Matt. Positivity isn't allowed in this sport much at the moment.
Oh, sorry about that.
Anyone else see Denny Hamlin having a go at
everybody?
Most notably, though, name escapes me, which is really annoying now. Larry McReynolds, you're on the ball. He said, "Is he going to apologise for what he said on the radio?" I don't know. I think they all went too far, in my opinion. The antitrust is more like the anti-popularity view of NASCAR. As we've said, I did not like the trial because it hurt both sides a lot. I don't know if you're going to say something there to come into it.
Everyone's allowed an opinion. You are allowed to have a different opinion to everybody else.
Yeah.
And
sure.
Free speech, the free world, etc., etc. You have to agree with him, blah, blah, blah.
I definitely agree everybody's entitled to their opinion. Don't get me wrong, but, like, how did the teams come out of this looking worse at all? I genuinely don't understand that opinion.
It's such a bizarre trial, and I'm just glad it's over. It's a fresh start for 26, which I think I really like. And hopefully, with whatever we end up with this new system of having
That's the next thing.
a playoff. Yeah, that's going to be the next topic we talk about when the Grid Network show returns next year.
Yeah, we're not getting a decision until January. Yay!
Well, at least they're keeping us busy. They're keeping us busy. As well as, I presume, when we also come back, we'll have some F1 cars to look at. So, yeah, it's going to get very interesting. Okay, moving on to our second story of the evening. For the third consecutive year, Conor Zilic will compete in next month's Rolex 24 at Daytona. Now, after competing in the LMP2 and the GTD Pro classes in the last 2 years, Zilic will step up to the GTP with Action Express Racing in this one-off drive. The young NASCAR star will drive the number 31 V-Line engineering Cadillac alongside Earl Bamber, Jack Aiken and Frederick Vesti. Now, Zilic tested the Cadillac prototype for the first time last month at the IMSA-sanctioned test at Daytona, saying the GTP car was heavier than the LMP2 car but had more power, and admitted that he'll have to learn the new controls that come with the hybrid system. He added that he was thrilled to join Action Express for one of his favourite races with one of the best teams in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, Paddock. Photo taken by Brandon Baradol from the Lum Digital Agency. Well, Kobe's back with us for this as well. So, Kobe, starting with you, does the addition of Zilic make Action Express an early favourite to win the Rolex 24 in January?
Yeah, certainly. When you look at this Action Express racing lineup, it's certainly one of the more stronger driver lineups that have already been announced for next year's Rolex 24 at Daytona. Talked a little bit about this on last week's show when they announced the entry list for the Roar Before the 24, and then, obviously the Rolex 24. There were a lot of names out there and seats that are still available, to this day. And when I looked at the entry list for GTP, you had Earl Bamber's name, you had Jack Aiken, you had Frederick Vesti, and then there was like a TBD beside the fort. We assumed it would be Conor Zilic, but we didn't know for sure. But obviously, he did enough to impress Cadillac, General Motors, everybody at Action Express Racing, the drivers in that car, where they were able to get a deal done for him to be in the seat. And I think it's going to be a real exciting experience for Conor to not just, return for the Rolex 24 for the third straight year, but also, compete for the overall win. For the first time. I know he ended up winning the LMP2 class, I believe, with Aero Motorsport a couple of years ago, which is great. It's always great whether you win in GTP, LMP2, GTD Pro, or GTD, because a win is a win at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. You get that Rolex watch as you earn it. But nothing beats being an overall winner at Daytona, because at the end of the day, when you're pulling up the stat sheet, people are only going to remember who won the race overall for the most part. And I'm sure Conor, wants to put his name in the history books as an overall winner at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. This kid is extremely special, a super talented driver. So I'm sure he's going to get up to speed with the hybrid system extremely quickly. Conor was obviously, really, really good when he made his LMP2 debut at the track. And then last year he was in GTD Pro with that Trackhouse TF Sport Corvette. I remember looking at the timesheets after the fact, and Conor Zilic was actually one of the fastest drivers in GTD Pro last year, which was absolutely amazing for him, because you don't think someone who doesn't race GT3 cars for a living, you really don't think someone like that would go out there and put together the performance that he did. Just thought it was just real remarkable for him to go out there and be one of the fastest GT drivers out there. He was quicker than a lot of the factory back platinum and gold rated GT drivers out there. So that just shows you the type of talent that he has. So I think if you add him to this driver lineup of Bamber, Aiken, and Vesti, Action Express certainly has to be one of the early favorites to win the 2026 Rolex 24 at Daytona. But at the end of the day, the balance of performance and things, that's going to play a factor as well, because Cadillac, have a bit of struggles, through the 2025 season, and towards the end of last year, really seeing they started to finally figure it out. I know they brought an updated car for the 2026 season, so we'll see if the updates help. But we know one thing: regardless of what BOP they're going to have, Connor Zillage is going to get fast, and he's going to continue to get faster as he get laps in. During the Roar before the 24, then the practice sessions, and then obviously the race as well. It would not surprise me if he's so fast that they actually let him finish the race.
The kid's a phenom, absolutely, no doubt about that. We've said that on this show and on this network for the last 2 years and pretty much all of this year. He's been one of the running themes of all of our programming through Xfinity and his couple of cup rides. And this is just the next thing. And, we were all disappointed that he didn't get to run at the Bahrain WEC test at the end of the year for factors that we talked about at the time, which we won't go into now. But for him to get this plum drive in, that is a tremendous lineup on paper. Bamber, Aitken, Vesti, and Connor. Vesti, of course, he came out of F2 a couple of years ago. Kind of thought he'd be a little bit further along by now, maybe, but he's still growing in his sort of endurance part of his career. We all know about Earl Bamber and Jack Aitken. I think it's a stellar lineup. And Cadillac need to, as Kobe, as you mentioned, they really need to kick off a bit better this year because they just could have stumbled out of the blocks last year, didn't they, with Porsche running away in the early part of the season and BMW having speed as well. So they've got a great lineup there for Daytona, which is only 5 weeks away, incredibly.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with either of Josh or Matt more. Obviously, Connor Zillage is one of the most amazing American racing prospects we've probably ever seen, ever. Like, that's really not an exaggeration. I mean, look at the kid's resume. He has not only dominated in certain disciplines, such as the NASCAR Xfinity Series, which, granted, yes, is a lower tier series compared to, something like IMSA, but at the same time, in his Cup debut, the kid was charging from the back of the field pretty much all the way to the top 10, which is no easy feat. But unfortunately, that day was ended by a mistake by his teammate and then ultimately a poor judgment call on his own part. But he was 18. The kid's, somewhat inexperienced. He's going to make mistakes. That said, the kid at 17 years old had a Rolex watch that he earned at Daytona from winning a race. That is insane to think about in terms of scale. Like, there are people that have driven their entire career in IMSA and haven't even sniffed the watch. So for him to come out there practically on his first shot and claim one, very impressive. With all that said, him moving up to the main category here and going for the overall victory, I think everybody is, in the racing circle is concerned. I think everybody is going to make that a point on television anytime that he takes a stint. Because, I mean, it's going to be a big 2026 for Connor Zillage. He's not only taking on the top division in IMSA, but he's also going to be moving up to the NASCAR Cup Series full time. And I think everybody's pretty excited to see what that's going to look like. In addition to that, I think for the first time in his career, he's probably going to have a chip on his shoulder because of how he lost the Xfinity Series title this year after putting on an absolute clinic and, in fact, a record-breaking campaign. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what we say now about what he's possibly going to do or what he could do. It really matters what happens when tires hit the pavement come January for this event. And like I said, I think everybody in the racing circle is extremely excited for this debut, and it could just be a sign of things to come. Hopefully we'll see him, maybe taking on Le Mans one of these days, but as we all know, every motorsport series in the world wants to schedule something for the second weekend in June to make it impossible for their drivers to go over to France for that hallowed race. So hopefully we'll see that regime change maybe take effect and allow for some of their drivers to go across the pond a little bit for a little endurance racing every now and again. With all that said, I think we're all pretty excited to see what Zillage is capable of. And the top division here, and I would like to hope he'll do a phenomenal job.
So after many, hang on, let's go Connors Lich and beyond ready for the 2026 Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona. It's going to be another good one to come in. Denny won't be happy about the new system and he'll sue again, surely. Oh, no. No more suing. Yeah, move on. After many lost confidence in race control under Penske Entertainment's umbrella throughout the 2025 season, the entity IndyCar Series will now have an independent officiating system next year. Now, this will be a new independent non-profit organization that a 3-person officiating board will govern. Now, since the board has been established, its next goal is to set a managing director of officiating and come up with an annual budget. 2 of the 3 board members were selected independently last week after IndyCar team owners and charter holders voted them into these positions. The 3rd board member was chosen by the FIA, which is expanding its relationship with IndyCar. Now, once a managing director is in place, they will report directly to the independent board with 0 oversight from IndyCar or Penske Entertainment. Now, the managing director will have full oversight and the power to hire personnel for race control and technical inspection, plus enforce the IndyCar rulebook. Now, 2 board members who were selected by IndyCar team owners were Ray Everman and Raj Nah. Now, Everham was best known for being Jeff Gordon's former championship-winning crew chief in the NASCAR Cup Series, and Nah previously served as an executive with Ford. Now, Ronan Morgan was appointed to the board by the FIA. Now, Morgan was the sporting director of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix from 2009 to 2021. He was also the president of the FIA Drivers' Commission, a member of the FIA World Motorsport Council, and an advisor to the FIA president, Mohammed Ben Sulayem. Now, IndyCar president Doug Bowles said that IndyCar team owners and the FIA have selected a world-class board with high character, incredible knowledge, and an intense passion for motorsports. Both graphics courtesy in this section of Penske Entertainment. Mohammed Ben Sulayem has put out saying, IndyCar is an American icon and I am proud of the relationship we are building together. The FIA's independent expertise in delivering consistent officiating oversight across our world championships combined with IndyCar's innovation and competitive spirit will support the continued growth of the series. I look forward to the work ahead of us. Well, I think it's safe to say, no! No! Yeah, I'm good. Every time I see the words FIA and officiating world class, I just think of a clown. And at this point, I can't tell if it's Homer Simpson or Pennywise the clown. No, forget that. I'm going full on Pennywise. IndyCar fans, I'm the first to say, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. So, will this finally quiet the concerns about a conflict of interest in IndyCar's officiating process with Penske Entertainment officials removed? And what do you think of the FIA's growing relationship with IndyCar? Matt, over to you.
Well, first of all, that statement from MBS probably wasn't said by him, and it's just got some words with his name at the bottom. Second of all, we're going to get to St. Pete. There's going to be a Penske car in the mix at the front end of the field. Let's say it's Scotty Mack, just for argument's sake, or Joseph Newgarden. Something's going to happen to another competitor, and it's going to benefit Penske. Oh, I know we're all back in the same ballpark that we were before, because you can just guarantee that that's going to happen. Well, maybe not St. Pete, but at some stage early in the season, there's going to be something happen. A ruling will help Team Penske somewhere, and all of the trees in the surrounding area will be lit on fire. I don't really know what the FIA wants to be involved with IndyCar for, frankly. Just let it be. We're going to talk about MBS again in a moment. I'll hold the rest of it for that, and just let it be. Something had to change. They've changed it again. much like the very first start of the show, something's changed. It's changed. Will it be better? Who knows?
Really interesting to see this come about. I know this is something that people have been screaming for the longest time because when you had the Penske Entertainment officials, in race control and all of that, something happened with Team Penske. If there's like a no call here in the benefit of the Penske, people are gonna be screaming conflict of interest here, and then it looks like IndyCar, has obviously listened to what people have been asking for and tried to have the team owners, not specifically the team owner, but the team owners who have charters. Oh, I'm sorry, Prema, you don't get a vote here. Only the charter teams, got to vote on this, and they chose, Ray Evernham and Raj Nair. Ray Evernham, a lot of people obviously know who he is, especially from the NASCAR world. A lot of people have respect for what Ray Evernham has done over the years since his days as Jeff Gordon's crew chief on that number 24 team in the Cup Series. He's done a lot of things outside of that since then over the years. It continues to be a player in the motorsports world. And Raj Nair, I remember him when he was with Chip Ganassi Racing's Ford GT program in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. So I don't know if there's a point where Alex Palou could potentially be called for a penalty, and then they decide a no call, and then people remember that Raj Nair was involved with the Ganassi Ford GT program. I wonder if we're going to have the exact same calls then, because I remember when the TV were interviewing, Ford Chip Ganassi Racing during those days, who was on the timing stand with Chip Ganassi? It was Raj Nair. So maybe we could have another future conflict of interest situation here. So, but hopefully not. But along with Evernham and Nair, it's interesting that they put Ronan Morgan in this position. Honestly, I had no idea who he was. Before they put out this press release, did a little research on him. And he's he's a full blown FIA guy. And someone who is, obviously close to Mohammed Ben Sulayem as an advisor. And it's been really interesting the last couple of weeks to see the FIA and IndyCar seemingly starting to grow this relationship that I had no idea that even existed. I know we talked about it last week when the FIA announced that they increased the number of points you can get towards the super license to potentially go race in Formula One. So IndyCar got shown a little bit more respect there from the FIA. Which I'm sure a lot of people in the IndyCar paddock are extremely excited about. And then, obviously this come around, they allow the FIA to play a small role in the officiating board, with IndyCar. And it makes me wonder what the FIA is, trying to do here. I'm not sure if this is like a situation we've been talking about, like with Toyota Gazoo Racing and Haas F1, where they started off, with just a technical partnership, and now they're the title partner of Haas F1. I wonder if the FIA has greater ambitions, for its relationship with IndyCar, or I'm gonna put us all on the screen when I say this, Josh and Matt. But God forbid, does the FIA become the future sanctioning body for the IndyCar series, dude? Does this become the IndyCar World Championship in the future? As I look at Josh's face as he looks horrified, that's what like when we got this announcement, Josh, Matt. This is what went in the back of my mind. I said there has to be something more, because it just seemed like that this relationship between IndyCar and the FIA seemed non-existent, throughout 2025, and then the years before that, it just really seemed to be non-existent. All of a sudden, IndyCar is getting an increase of super license points. Now we're allowing an FIA official, to join the IndyCar officiating board. It just feels like that this relationship could grow more and more over time. I do wonder if this is going to become the FIA IndyCar World Championship in the future.
If I may, chaps. I don't know if that came through.
No.
Ah, that's because it's in my earphones, isn't it? Mr. Krabs, money. In fact, hang on, let me just get on my phone. No. Just no, and
money.
There you go. That's all it's about. That's all this is about, money. And personally, no, I can't. I'm done with the FIA after this year. I really am. Speaking of which, the FIA IndyCar World Championship sounds weird to me. Yeah, no.
Presented by Gatorade. Because it'll have to be presented.
I think the FIA's trying to damage my microphone as well. Getting to the end of the year, and it's like I'm being cut out. Well, don't worry, I have a backup in case. I'll put that there actually, just in case. So, should we get into the main story? Kobe has put this in the script just for me. Are you ready, chaps? Are you sitting comfortably, everybody? Then we shall begin. Last Friday in Uzbekistan, incumbent FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem won re-election after running unopposed to secure a second 4-year term. Now, according to Andrew Benson from BBC Sport, Sulayem won 91.51% of the votes, with 8.5% of voters deciding not to vote for the only candidate on the ballot. Now, Sulayem's second term ends in December 2029, and he'll be eligible to run for a third and final term after that. Now, earlier in the year, there were hopes of having more than one candidate on the ballot, as Tim Mayer and Laura Velaz launched FIA presidential campaigns. However, Mayer and Velaz had their hopes dashed because they weren't able to put together a full list of potential vice presidents. Now, the FIA election rules state that every FIA presidential candidate must name one potential vice president from every global region represented by the FIA. Now, here's where Sulayem got the upper hand on the other two. In South America, there was only one potential vice president candidate. That is Fabiana Eccleston, the wife of Bernie Eccleston. Now, Fabiana already pledged her loyalty to Sulayem, basically clinching his election victory months before election day. Now, Velaz is challenging the election process in a courtroom in France with a hearing scheduled for February 16th, 2026. That is literally, not even kidding, the day after I get back from France in Paris. That's unbelievable. In a statement, the FIA said the election was conducted in line with the FIA's statutes, throughout a robust and transparent voting process reflecting the democratic foundations of the Federation and the collective voice of its global membership. The link to Benson's article is in the video description below and the photo courtesy of the FIA. Well, what should we expect from Mohammed Ben Sulayem's second term as FIA president?
Well, Josh, that statement you just read from the FIA, as you like to say, what a load of rubbish, right? I say, so the FIA is saying that they had a robust and transparent voting process reflecting the democratic foundations of the Federation and the collective voice of its global membership. Really, guys, are they trying to pull wool over our eyes, think we're all stupid, that we don't see what's really going on here? I know we've talked a lot about this story before, and it's real unfortunate because I feel like all of the voters out there, these clubs that are part of the FIA, I feel like they deserve to have multiple candidates to choose from, and then you have your presidential campaigns from each one, and then you decide who to vote for. At the end of the day, I feel like they deserve more than one candidate on the ballot because there was no other option besides Mohammed Ben Sulayem. And I thought Tim Mayer was putting together an interesting campaign when he was out on the trail trying to gather support. And then, Laura Villers, she entered her name in the race very late. I honestly didn't really see much, from her besides, the website and a few little pillars that she put out what she wanted to see, change with the FIA. And it's just really unfortunate that we didn't get what I believe, is a fair electoral process here. And I don't know what the next, 4 years or so under Mohammed Ben Sulayem is going to look like. I imagine it'll be, much of the same. Maybe it'll get even worse. Hopefully it doesn't get much worse, but I don't really have much hope that things are going to get better under his leadership because, he's been someone, that many people have not been a fan of. You can tell, when he's at the Formula One races, there's a lot of tension, when people are standing near him because they obviously do not like the guy and don't want him to be around. But he's going to be around at least through 2029 when we have another election when he could potentially run for a third and hopefully final term because you never really know what rules he could change between now and then. And it's really crazy how he found his little loophole here where he could get Bernie Ecclestone's wife to be the only representative of South America, and she chose him. So who Tim Mayer and Laura Villers is going to choose? They didn't have anyone else, so that basically eliminated them from being able to run for FIA president. And it just makes me think, what is it going to take, for people to decide, to push back on some of the things that Mohammed Ben Sulayem has done. And I guess they just haven't upset the right people yet, because if he upsets the right people, then you'll see, I think at that point you'll see a push, for people to try to, or I guess just try to get something different, out there leading the FIA, because right now. Obviously it was the expected result, so I guess you can't really be surprised, but I'm sure there's a lot of disappointment all around, wondering what a second term is going to be like under MBS.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Kobe, that what was it? The words thorough and robust transparency. I mean, it was just a joke, isn't it? We were in the summer looking at the calendar, and when the Tim Mayer news came out, and David Richards and Robert Reed kind of split away at the beginning of the year from MBS, and there was some tension and eruptions going on, and we had kind of planned for this show to be a party to bring in the new president from last Friday, whoever it may turn out to be. I had an Amazon basket ready with party poppers, streamers, hats, etc., for us all to have on during the show, and I had to cancel that. I had Cool and the Gang, Celebrate Good Times, copyright cleared, so I could play it on the show and in the bin. And we're stuck with who we've got. I think he can run for a third term, as you say, Josh, without having to bend any constitutional rights to get it. Hello, President. So I think we're stuck with him for the next 4 years. And to the question, what was it in the script there? I've lost it now. What should we expect from MBS's second term as the FIA president? Yes.
Yeah. Re-election, more like reselection. Can we even call it an election? I don't think we can. Yeah, he knew. He knew from the second he had Fabiano on side, everybody else was done. If I had a nickel for every time a president manipulated an election,
you'd have 2 nickels.
Yeah, which isn't a lot, but it's strange it's happened twice.
Recently.
Anyway, yeah.
What is the word? Anyway.
Can't wait to see what 2026 is going to bring us. Okay, right. That's it from our main stories. Next up, it's going to be over to Matt White. Matt, you've got the final Grid EPI update of the year.
Thank you, Josh. The Grid Endurance Performance Index of 2025, of course, has come to a close with the final races being run and won. We have decided, I have decided that last weekend's Golf 12 Hours is going to shift into the 2026 EPI, along with, there's already 4 races in the spreadsheet already. Last weekend's Golf 12 Hours, the weekend before's Sepang 12 Hours, and the 2 Asian Le Mans Series Sepang races that ran over the weekend. The Asian Le Mans Series, of course, will pick up at the end of January, beginning of February in Dubai and in Abu Dhabi to complete their season. So we will have a good bunch of people ready to be eligible when we roll out the next year's 2026's Endurance Performance Index week number 1, which will be the first show that we do in April to coincide with the normal grid ranking, which will be ready to roll in April as well. But let's take a look back quickly at what happened this year, and congratulations once again go to this year's champion, which is Oliver Gray. There he is aboard the Mark VDS Panis LMP2 car from the European Le Mans Series. He was part of the championship winning squad there, along with the man that came second in the Grid Endurance Performance Index standings of 2025, and then he's Esteban Masson. There was another European Le Mans Series front runner in Jakub Śmiechowski finishing 4th. So if that's anything to go by for next year, look out for LMP2 Pro in the European Le Mans Series, because they've got a short calendar and their scores count very nicely indeed. Gray had 3 spells at the top of the point standings. Lawrence Vanfor had 2, and he eventually dropped out of the top 10 to make way for a female, and the first female to get into the top 10 in Grid EPI history, Jamie Chadwick, who was another of the European Le Mans Series LMP2 Championship combatants that ran very well all season, and of course at Le Mans as well. She ends the standings in 10th. News about Patrick Niederhauser today. He has signed with Lamborghini as a factory driver for next year going forward. So a little bit of news there. Congratulations to the Swiss on that. So that's how the top 10 landed. This is how the top 50 finished up. If we've got the graphic, yes, we have. So that's pick out your favorite driver. A couple of them we've mentioned during the show for various things. Fred Vesti was part of that IMSA news that we had earlier. He is in 20th position there. Long-time IMSA points leaders Felipe Nasr and Nick Tandy, who were Grid EPI points leaders as well, just outside the top 20, just behind Matt Campbell, who of course won the championship in IMSA this season. The Ford winning championship pair of Mike Rockenfeller and Seb Prio there as well in 45th and 46th, and others from the wider endurance world spattered throughout the top 10. The Grid EPI returns, as I said, next year. We've already got 4 races in the book, and in the early part of the year next year, we'll have Dubai for the 24 hours, Daytona for the 24 hours, Bathurst for the 12 hours on my birthday, most importantly. And then the Asian Le Mans Series kicks back into gear as well in February. We'll bring you all the results, standings, photos, and more as we get through the year next year, as we always do in the Grid EPI slot. The spreadsheet, as I said, already beginning to take shape for 2026, and we will give you those results as they come throughout the year. Congratulations once again to Ollie Gray on his championship as the Grid Endurance Performance Index driver of 2025. We've gone 70 minutes. It's time for Kobe to wrap up his final news segment of the year. All yours, my friend.
Thanks, Matt, and thankfully there's a shorter news segment as everybody decided to announce everything before Christmas and New Year's last week, so we had a few announcements for this week. So time for some more motorsports news from around the world. And after announcing a full-time ARCA Menard Series program last week for Bella Robusto, Nitro Motorsports signed 2 more female drivers for the 2026 season. Mia Lavelle will compete in ARCA West next year after winning Rookie of the Year and scoring multiple podiums this year in the Trans Am West TA2 class. Before competing in Trans Am, Lavelle started her racing career in Toyota GR Cup North America, and now she's set to take on the world of stock car racing. Team owner Nick Tucker said Lavelle has continued to impress them with her adaptability, racecraft, and professionalism, believes that advancing her into ARCA West is the next natural step. Jade Avedizian will also drive for Nitro, joining them for a part-time schedule in ARCA National. Avedizian's ARCA program will be sponsored by Mobile One and Yahoo. She made her ARCA debut earlier this year at the DeQuan State Fairgrounds dirt track, including 2 ARCA West races at the Las Vegas Bull Ring and Phoenix. Tucker said Avedizian is the type of driver that their development program is designed to support and believes that she'll turn heads in 2026. Photos courtesy of Nitro Motorsports. Grove Racing will enter the 2026 Bathurst 12-hour endurance race and compete for the overall win in the pro class. The number 100 Mercedes-AMG GT3 entry will be shared by Penrite Racing Supercars driver Kai Allen, its recently announced Supercars endurance driver Will Davison, and the team CEO and driver Brennan Grove will complete the lineup. Allen and Davison previously shared a Dick Johnson racing car in the 2024 Bathurst 1000. Penrite 100 will sponsor the car in celebration of the company's 100-year anniversary there for Penrite Oil. Team owner Stephen Grove said they've proven that they can win at Bathurst, and now they're taking the next step by targeting an overall victory on the world stage. Graphic courtesy of Grove Racing. Walkinshaw Andretti United will have a new name for the 2026 Repco Supercars Championship season, with United Autosports leaving the team's ownership group after claiming the 2025 title with Chaz Mostert. The team will be renamed Walkinshaw TWG Racing. United's Zach Brown and Richard Dean exit Supercars to focus on the 2027 FIA World Endurance Championship McLaren Hypercar program. McLaren CEO Zach Brown said it was an incredibly difficult decision to leave Supercars, but highlighted winning the 2021 Bathurst 1000 with Mostert and Lee Holsworth, plus a championship together in their final race in Adelaide as memories that he'll never forget. The TWG Motorsports brand also replaces Andretti in the team name as CEO Dan Towers continues to build his brand globally. All of these changes will go into effect on February 3rd, 2026, graphic courtesy of Walkinshaw TWG Racing. In 2027, Formula One will return to Portimao for the Portuguese Grand Prix. This will be the first year of a 2-year deal with the Portuguese government to replace the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort for the 2027 and 2028 seasons. In recent memory, Formula One last raced in Portugal during the 2020 and 2021 season with Lewis Hamilton winning both races. F1 CEO and President Stefano Domenicali said he's delighted to see Portimao return to the schedule and for the sport to continue to ignite the incredible Portuguese fan base. Photo courtesy of Formula One. And after winning the 2025 ARCA Menard Series title with Brendan Butterbean Queen, Pinnacle Racing Group will return next year with new goals. The numbers 28 and 77 Chevrolets will run full-time in ARCA National, but multiple drivers will share those cars as they chase the Owners' Championship in ARCA East. However, they'll have two full-time drivers competing for that title, with Richard Childress racing development driver Carson Brown in the number 28 Chevrolet, and Spire Motorsports development driver Tristan McKee in the number 77. And now looking at the full schedule for each driver in the number 28 Chevrolet, Brown will drive at Phoenix, Hickory, Rockingham, Nashville, Watkins Glen, Toledo, Pocono, Lime Rock, RP, Flat Rock, Iowa, Springfield, Madison, DeQuan, Salem, Bristol, and Kansas Fall Race. While Jack Wood, he's going to get 3 races in that car at Daytona, the Kansas Spring Race, and Talladega. Then Connor Mosat will get behind the wheel of the number 28 at Michigan and Chicagoland for 2 races. And then the number 77 Chevrolet, McKee will drive at Phoenix, Hickory, Rockingham, Nashville, Watkins Glen, Toledo, Lime Rock, RP, Flat Rock, Iowa, Madison, Salem, and Bristol. And then Taylor Reimer, moving over from Toyota, she's going to be in the number 77 Chevrolet at Daytona, Talladega, Berlin, Elko, Springfield, and DeQuan. And lastly, Laney Bias gets a few races, starting with the Kansas Spring Race, and she'll also be in the seat at Michigan, Pocono, Chicagoland, and the Kansas Fall Race to conclude her slate. Graphic courtesy of Pinnacle Racing Group. And that's all of the headlines that I have for the year 2025. So I'm going to throw it over to Matt for our last Hots and Knots segment of the year.
Thank you, Kobe. Our very final Hots and Knots segment of the year, which Josh and Tanner are here with me for. But before we do that, and while you're getting your Hots and Knots in the comment section so that we can read them out, we have some Hots and Knots from some of the other Grid Network names and faces.
Hello, Josh, Matt. Wonderful 2025 year. You all did a great job on Grid tonight with Kobe, reporting on all the latest motorsports news, pick a winner, and of course, Hot and Knots. For 2025, my ultimate hot has to be the 2025 Bathurst 1000. What a race. One of the best races of the year. Probably in a long time, we're going to be talking about how great this race was from start to finish, the strategy, the weather aspects, the battle for the win. Truly, this is one of those races where you talk about a race where if you're introducing somebody into motorsports, what's a great race? If you're going to introduce somebody to the Repco Supercar Series and their crown jewel race, the Bathurst 1000, this race lives up to that reputation of you got to show them this race first, and they'll be hooked into Supercar Series and motorsports. Of course, with Hots, there has to be a knot. I have to say the ultimate knot for 2025, it's very recent, has to be the NASCAR antitrust trial. This could have been avoided. We know people have their different opinions, but the fact is this: I think when you look at how this case played out, how when NASCAR started their defense, it was pretty clear they were not going to be prevailing. At the end of the day, the options they were looking at is going through to the end, seeing what Judge Bell was going to do to dismantle NASCAR monopoly, and then we'll be talking about appeals throughout 2026, maybe into 2027. We could have risked the health of NASCAR. If they had to sell off those tracks, there's no guarantee that whoever's going to buy up those tracks were going to keep it as a racetrack and may develop it. Data centers are very popular, centers for AI, and of course, residential. We've lost plenty of tracks in the past to development, including Auto Club Fontana Speedway recently. At the end of the day, it seemed like the leadership really got this wrong from NASCAR. This could have been a settlement many months ago. At the end of the day, it is what it is. The damage has been done. I think a lot of folks will be going forward to 2026, hoping for a great Daytona 500 race weekend. But how will the fans really respond to what we saw in the courtroom? That's my hot and not. Thank you so much.
What's up, guys? It's Matt Bro from GridNetworkTV.com. I would say my hot of the year would just be the dominance we saw amongst a lot of drivers, quite frankly. You saw Brock Feeney dominate. He didn't win the title. Same with Connor Zilch. You saw guys like Corey Heim go kick butt. You saw guys like Alex Palou go out there and kick butt. Mark Marquez is the biggest example of that. So I would say that's probably my hot of the year. My cold or not, I guess, of the year would be a lot of disappointing results from drivers I think we expected more out of. On the Formula One side, I think Yuki Tsunoda could have done a lot better than he did. Unfortunately, now he's out of a seat. Franco Colapinto in the Alpine did not do well really at all. The only rookie to not score, if you're not counting Jack Doohan. And then I would say on the NASCAR side, Riley Herbst, and he had equipment that his teammates both finished on the top 11 or 12 of the points, and he was 35th. So not really the best on that end, but I would say those are my hots and nots of 2025.
Thank you to Joe. Thank you to Matt, the big boss, and the Picker Winner Champion of the Year, giving us their hots and nots. And of course, Picker Winner will return for the first round after Christmas. Will be Mexico Formula E, which is the second weekend of January. That'll be the next Picker Winner point available to everybody. Josh is back. Tanner is back. I think we should let Tanner go first here with his. We'll do hots first, as we always do. Hot of the year, Tanner, for you. You muted.
One last flub up before the year's out. We can file that in the not column. Anyway, my final hot of the year and my overall hot of the year is Alex Palou. The man put on an absolute clinic all year long. He won the Indy 500. He won 4 of the first 5 races, which we haven't seen in many years. He almost got to double digits, which, again, we haven't really seen in any of our lifetimes. So definitely got to tip my cap to Alex Palou. I think that for him to not only just have this kind of a campaign to make this the end of a three-peat, which granted, I'm not saying there's an end in sight. I'm just saying that the three-peat is complete. Yeah. For him to continue the sustained level of dominance is frankly unfathomable. And yeah, I'd say he's the best driver that we have on planet Earth right now, and I am frankly terrified if he continues to improve what we're going to see next year.
I'd second that actually as well. I think he's had a remarkable adaptation into IndyCar because, of course, everyone knew he might have gone down the route of Formula One. He had that option. He decided, no, I'll take IndyCar. And he's taken it by storm, and he's had a fantastic season to which at one point it was either him winning, Carl Kirkwood winning, and then I think they dominated the first half of the season. Then Dixon came in and won a couple as well. Herta got on the board as well. So I don't know, it seems to be a bit of a standard with this car, isn't it, as well? It's a bit like, as we said it during the year, like Max Verstappen in Formula One in this new, in what is been now the past Grand Effect era. He dominated with that regulation set, and with this car and this version of it, with all the hybrid tech coming in as well, the DW12 being so old, it seems to be Palou who's just having this become better and better. And I think I summed it up, Matt, brilliantly with saying that the most unpredictable race in the world was won by the most predictable winner. Him winning the Indy 500. I think I summed it up quite nicely.
Yeah, no, it certainly was. My hot is, I'm going to allow myself to have 2, and Matt mentioned it in his video. Marc Marquez, what a year he had. Just a shame it ended in the way it ended, with him breaking himself again and missing all those races at the end of the year. But my ultimate hot of the year was someone that dominated but didn't quite get the ultimate goal. It's from New Zealand. You might be going to see where I'm going with this.
Yes.
Oh, what's he going to do in the Cup Series? Well, he's going to absolutely trounce everybody at every chance he gets on road courses, apart from Makota, where he got taken out early stages. Shane Van Gisbergen. He's going to be another force next year, but he's got that young whippersnapper teammate to keep him honest next year at Trackhouse, which is going to be very interesting to see what happens there.
SVG's been brilliant this season, hasn't he, as well? And let's add in Colin Zilic as well. Both of them next year in the Cup Series on road courses. That's going to give the road courses just a fantastic bite. I can't wait. I purposely let you both go and sort of skirt around because with my hots, the amount of series I cover, we could be here till the sun explodes. So I'll pin it down to a couple as what you haven't talked about. First of all, British Touring Car Championship, Tom Ingram doing the double. 2 for Tingram. That's brilliant. Well done for him. He's got 2. Formula One, yes, obviously Lando Norris getting that But my hot actually was, what a good end to the season. I wasn't on last week, so I couldn't talk about it. I was on holiday as well in Wales. But what a good end. There was no drama. There was no misery. At one point in the race, everybody led the championship at one point and could have won it. And it was a good end. I really enjoyed that Abu Dhabi Championship, and it was a good race. So the most meh season ended with a good result. So that's my hot. I really did enjoy NASCAR this season. I really, really did. It was so much fun, so much action, so much interest. And we'll get on to a bit of a knot I've got with it later. MotoGP, Marc Marquez dominating. That was fantastic. Well done. Deserves it a lot. Trying to work it out. World Endurance Championship as well. What a run we've had from Alpine. Then winning in Suzuka was completely unexpected. That was a brilliance as well. Christian Horner gone. Helmut Marko gone. Jonathan Whitley moved over. The Red Bull hierarchy getting dismantled. That's a positive for me because it's developed into something new. And even though I've criticised him in the past, I really feel that Laurent Mekies has got the precipice here to build a stronger, more determined Red Bull. And I'm really excited to see what Isaac Hadjar can do in the second seat next year. So there's a lot of positives I take away from this year. But I think my ultimate high has to actually come from a race which I was gasping for breath every couple of seconds. And it might actually surprise you what it was. It was the race at Bristol in the NASCAR Cup Series where all of the tyres were failing. And me, JT, Omi, Matthew Owens, and Jack were all in the commentary box going, what on earth is going on? How do we commentate on this race? I loved it. That's my ultimate high of the year, proving that if you get the tyres just a little bit wrong, you get the unpredictable nature and you get a great race.
Quickly before we do knots, hold that thought because I don't want to end on a negative and I'm going to come back to it in a minute. JT, good evening to you. It's been 84 years and JB is still on his huts and haven't even got to nuts yet.
I cover a lot of series.
I don't want to end on a negative. We'll do knots. We'll come back to something at the end. Tanner, knots of the year for you.
Oh, there are plenty, but I think that it would only be fitting, especially with everything that I had to talk about tonight, that the not be anything that Jim France had control of in 2025 outside of IMSA. And what I mean by that is the fact that this court case got dragged into an actual court case. The fact that NASCAR is still doing this championship format, even though it's been broken in 7 or 8 different ways at this point, and it got the exact desired result that they have been waiting for years, and everybody hated it. Like, I think we have all kind of dissected the championship race on this channel enough, but the fact that, again, Hamlin led more percentage and more laps than anybody else had ever led in the championship race in the 12 seasons that the championship format was in this one race playoff, and he still didn't win the championship because of a late race caution that, again, could have been debatable whether it was a caution worthy, incident. And then for it all to be going up in smoke. And then you obviously have the night before where Connor Zilic, who had 10 plus wins this year, a number of top 5s, absolutely lapped the field in a number of respects. Didn't end up with the title either. Definitely not a good look. And the fact that Corey Haim, the night before that, had to pull off an unprecedented 7-wide move to achieve the title that he so rightly deserved. Definitely got to throw it up to Jim France and NASCAR and everybody that runs it for how they completely boggled this entire system and this entire season from top to bottom. They deserved every low rating on TV that they got, and frankly, I hope next year is a step in the right direction.
JT,
Their low ratings for us, just saying, we had the best season ever for NASCAR.
JT, I'm going to have to, Matthew Owens is going to have to copyright that phrase before everybody starts getting hold of that and using it.
Yeah, because we won't use it next year.
Hopefully not. My knot of the year is also going to come from MotoGP land. What happened to our 2-time world champion this year? Francesco Bagnaia.
Oh,
He was MIA from about April onwards.
did he even turn up?
Well, he was there in body, wasn't he? But
Yes.
what else? Apart from at Motegi where he won, where suddenly he was at the front and winning again.
Very mysterious. The bike, all of a sudden, he was working, and then the next week it was broken again.
Strange that, if you believe what you hear from people in the MotoGP paddock.
Off
and
came the restrictors.
What he had tested or not tested. At Aragon, I think it was, prior, or Misano. So, yeah, he needs a big year next year to, as I said at the time, a month or so ago, to keep his job, frankly. Otherwise, he'll be smashing everybody up in World Superbike like Nico Bulliger's about to do next year on his own.
I was about to say, especially how Bulliger delivered in those last two races, points in both, and that was super impressive.
Yeah, indeed so. I'm trying to not run this show more overly long. I think that's my only not of the year. Josh, apart from obviously the FIA stuff, which we've talked about verbatim.
Yeah, the FIA stuff I think takes one. The NASCAR Cup Series race ending, that was mine, because I think everybody left that box that day feeling that was a bit of a bitter end. It wasn't the right one. It was, in my opinion, worse than Abu Dhabi 21, because at that point you could argue both deserved it, but Kyle Larson, I don't think he did. Denny deserved it, and I'll die on a hill saying that. I think another not for me, I didn't like how the World Superbike title ended. Great job for Top Rat Razgatlione, that's fine, but Bulliger hitting him off in the Superpole race, that wasn't necessarily needed. Didn't like what we saw in Formula One with the papaya rules. That was just not needed. Big not of the year, Ferrari. They've broken Lewis Hamilton. And I really hope that 26 is going to regain a bit of strength for them. But the biggest knot of the year, are you ready for this?
Go on.
Is having to work week in, week out with JT. My God, he's so annoying.
Oh, goodness.
No, I lie. It's been great fun working with him as well. But yeah, garbage system, Owens Marks.
Got it. You spot on.
Yeah, no, the worst. There's two worst. Do you want to know what they are? The ultimate knots of the year. It's two people. Number one, Mohammed Ben Sulayem. Number two, Danica Patrick. And it looks like she's been fired.
Oh, well, praise the Lord.
Yes. Bye, Danica. Go on.
Final thing to finish on, and I'm going to drop this on both of you, and Josh mentioning it before. Wow. Spark this. No prep for this, and you've already mentioned one of them, but so you're going to have to choose another one. Race of the year.
Ooh.
Can I go first? Because I've already thought about mine.
Yeah, please.
Le Mans, not the 24-hour race. The French Grand Prix for MotoGP. Oh my goodness, everything happened and they got a French winner. Just incredible. Good. And he should have had another French winner before he stopped. No, did he fall off? I can't remember now.
Fell off, yeah.
He fell, didn't he? And then Zarco came through to win. All the emotion, all the tears, all the tricolores. Just what a scene at Le Mans. Brilliant. That's my race.
If I can't pick any of that, I'll pick Formula One, British Grand Prix, once again delivered. A classic race. It was dry, wet, dry again. Lando won, a British winner, someone different than Lewis winning for after 9 times. But I think that was a great race. Obviously, I can't pick the Bristol race, which I absolutely enjoyed, the autumn race.
Tanner?
Yeah, I think that mine is probably going to go to Bristol Cup for the night race. Obviously, they had one of the most chaotic but still quality races that we got to see this year out of NASCAR. That said, the other one that kind of came to mind was that Sonoma battle between SVG and Connor Zilic in the Xfinity series. That was the best battle of the year in my mind. But yeah, the 2025 Bristol night race by far was, in my opinion, the best race of the year.
And I'll just add as well, absolute pleasure working with all you boys here at the Grid Network as well. As always,
And to you as well.
hottest of hots. Pleasure working with everyone over at Formula E Zone, JB Motorsports, Grid Network as well, and the newly formed Ultimate Sports Network. Just absolute pleasure as always, and I can't wait for more in 2026. So, do you want to take this one, Matt, while I swap mics?
Yeah. Adam's hot Bathurst. I will watch it at some point. I couldn't tell you when. I've only just finished watching Perth, and that was June. So I will get to Bathurst eventually. Now, this year's Bathurst will probably be next year's race of the year for me when I eventually get around to watch. Going to Talladega, he said, and seeing SVG compete in person and Lando winning the championship. Adam's hots of 2025, and he's not playoff format in supercars and NASCAR. NASCAR going to Dover for the All-Star race in 26. Yes, that is going to be interesting. One more thing, wishing everybody the Grid Network a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and a Happy New Year and Merry Christmas to you, Adam, as well. And thank you for your support all year on the program. Matthew says, I'll just give my nod to all of the toxicity among NASCAR's fan base. Enough already. Myself and Matthew have discussed it for the Ultimate Sports NASCAR Show, episode 2, which will be up at some point soon. 2025 Bathurst 1000 Race of the Year, says Adam, as he also described before. Josh says, it's fine being on more USN broadcasts than JVM this past month. So it's if you don't like working with me, because someone who is always behind the mic does. Very close. A drop-in clue in there. Very good.
Cheeky. It's all right. He's got a port with me for 36 weeks of the year with NASCAR, so that's fine. Plus more everything else. Have you wrapped on Hots or Nots brought to you by Insert Your Name Here?
Wrapped, bowed, stickered. It's in the cracker. It's ready to go. Let's take it up to Santa and stick it on the sleigh.
Excellent. Kobe, get back on the screen. Let's get going. So that's it, folks. We have wrapped up 2025. And once again, it's my honor to sound off the Grid Network this year. And it's a reminder, please do continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for helping us reach 1,700 subscribers this year. We're now inching closer to our next milestone of 2,000 subscribers. You can hit the bell icon to get notifications so you'll always know when we go on the air, and follow all of our social media platforms and visit gridnetworktv.com. You can take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. You can join Colin, Mark, Deshelle, Robin, David, Matthew, and Crystal, who all invest each month in the Grid Network. And we encourage you to join these fine folks, help us keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we can afford to send our team to the track more often and continue growing our media outlet. The link to all of that is in the video description below. And if you want to make a one-time donation, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, get your name on the board, and invest as much as you want. Consider buying a specific on-air personality cup of coffee, and they will thank you on the air. Well, he doesn't know I'm at Brands a lot next year. Oh, oops. Oh, well, that's something to look forward to. Matt says, hot. I watched every lap of the 2025 Cup Series season. I enjoyed every bit of it. Loved it all. I think he did every race, if I'm not mistaken.
He did, yeah.
He did, yeah.
Lap of the season.
I didn't do that because he filled in for me quite a few times. So well done. Well, that's it, folks. I really hope you've enjoyed our content on the Grid Network in 2025. Be sure to tune in for 2026 when we get going again with the Grid Tonight Show in January. Have a very happy holiday season as well. We'll see you with more breaking news in 2026. But for Kobe Lambeth, Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index, and Tanner Smith from Pitbox Press, I'm Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports. Thank you very much for watching the Grid Network this year. We'll see you. Have a very safe and a very happy holiday season. We'll see you in 2026. Bye-bye, everybody.